I want to flip that around and say that the fear in the beginning or that you're feeling right now is not necessarily bad. It's going to be bad if you stay in that fear. Let's turn that around and turn it into being intentional with your homeschool, and then turn that into a positive. Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast, where you'll learn tips and strategies that will empower you to home educate your children. I'm Leigh Nguyen, a homeschool mom of over 12 years, which includes 2 graduates. When I started homeschooling, I was pretty much on my own and was desperate for encouragement and help. My mission is to be a source of encouragement and help to you. Whether you are just beginning your homeschool journey or you're deep into the homeschool lifestyle, Little by Little Homeschool wants to help you stay the course, because all the time you are investing into your children is completely worth it. If you're ready to take your homeschool to new levels, keep listening. Are you looking for community in your homeschool? Are you looking to gather together with other homeschool families who are on the same mission for homeschool and have the same desires and outcome for homeschooling as you do? Can I introduce you to Classical Conversations? Classical Conversations uses the classical method of home education, and they are a great resource for parents who want to homeschool classically, but aren't quite sure how to do it, but also want to do it within a community. Because really, what kid doesn't like being around other kids? And as homeschoolers, we get to choose that. We get to choose the community and those that are going to rally around and those that are going to inspire and teach our children. And so I want to share with you a little bit of information about Classical Conversations. They have graciously come alongside us and are helping to sponsor Little by Little Homeschool Conference. There's more details about the conference in the show notes. Would love to be able to see you there. But if you are looking for community, if maybe you're looking for a different method of homeschooling, maybe you're curious about a classical way of homeschooling, or maybe you've never heard of it, I want to encourage you to go ahead and check out their link. It'll be in the show notes. It's also info.classicalconversations.com/New York. It is the New York part of Classical Conversations that is sponsoring the conference. However, you can join Classical Conversations no matter where you find yourself in the United States. Classical Conversations is not only a great way to make community for you, for your homeschool kids, you as a mom, because granted, if there's homeschool kids there, there's going to be moms as well. And they get together, as I'm pretty sure, weekly. I have some friends that are involved in it, and they absolutely love it. It has met their needs for community. It has met their educational and academic goals. And it is a way of, because I know that, let's just say that I know that a lot of homeschool families and moms in particular are like, I don't know what to teach. I don't know what curriculum to use. Classical Conversations has a course of education that you can go through, and it takes the guesswork out of it. So I'm going to encourage you to check out Classical Conversations through that link I mentioned earlier, but of course, the link is in the show notes for you as well. Now let's get into today's episode, and we're going to talk about why a homeschool mom, that's you, right? Why you are scared and how you can overcome this fear. It doesn't matter if you've been homeschooling for a while and still are holding on to fear for homeschool, or maybe you're just getting into homeschool or thinking about it. I interact with a lot of homeschool moms that are from, whether they might just be thinking about it, it might be their first year, or they might be a couple years in. There is just this pervasive fear. So if you have this worry and this fear and you're scared about the homeschool and what's going to happen with all this, is it actually going to work? I want to say you're in good company, but let's not stay in that place of fear. That is not a good place to stay. That is not where God wants you to stay. But I want to flip that around and say that the fear in the beginning or that you're feeling right now is not necessarily bad. It's going to be bad if you stay in that fear. Let's turn that around. And let's let that fear and that worry go ahead and turn it around and turn it into being intentional with your homeschool, and then turn that into a positive. When there is a negative, we can then take that from homeschool and say, okay, I am experiencing this. This is a real emotion. We know that the Bible says that We don't need to be fearful about things, but you love your kids so much and you want to get this right. So I understand that. But let's take that fear and the energy that you are putting into that fearful state. Let's overcome that and pour that into a good thing and see some really good things happen with your homeschool. I have 3 main points of why I think that you're fearful. And after each one, I'm going to tell you how to overcome that because, again, we don't want to stay stuck in that fear. The way of overcoming it, though, is to admit that you're scared and that you have those fears. And maybe for you, admitting that to yourself is enough. Maybe for you, you need to write it down, write it out, journal it, and then you can get to the overcoming part. Maybe you need to talk to your husband, and that will help you overcome it. Maybe you need to talk to some other homeschool moms, and that will help you to overcome it. You have to know yourself and know what is going to be the best way. And there's no right or wrong way unless you say to yourself, well, as long as I work this out in my mind, then I'll overcome it. But then you stay stuck in it, knowing really you need to discuss this with somebody else because that's how your personality leans. You are somebody that needs to verbally process this, or maybe you need some accountability. Admit what you need so you can get to the other side and reach those goals that you have for your family. So the first reason I see that a lot of homeschool moms are fearful is that you don't know how it's going to turn out. You probably have some young children. Maybe you're just thinking about homeschooling because they're not even quite of compulsory school age yet. And you're like, wow, that's a long ways from now. Or you could be a few years into it and you're still saying, I don't know how this is going to turn out. Let's just say that online, there are mixed, we'll say in air quotes, reviews about homeschool. Sometimes, especially on Facebook, I'll have a reel go, for me, maybe viral. I might have a couple 100,000 views on it. And there was one in particular where I was talking about what kids are missing out on. And I read through the comments. There was maybe a couple hundred comments. And I was reading through because there was mixed reviews. And of course, there was the ones of, well, I knew this one homeschool kid. And of course, I'm like, okay, you knew one. Nobody says that that is any type of exact outcome. Okay, that's one person. I've known at least one person that went to public school that it didn't turn out well. So, okay, they cancel each other out. But it was really interesting to see so many who said that they were homeschooled. And some of these were homeschooled in the 80s and 90s when there wasn't as many resources out there and their parents were doing something that was actually kind of rebellious, right? And so it was neat to see their mixed, in air quotes, reviews of how it turned out. I'm going to tell you that most of them said that it turned out well. There were a handful. Of course, this isn't asking everybody who was ever homeschooled, but these are all adults. I assume that they're all adults. There weren't many. Sometimes I'll get comments and they'll say, well, I'm 16, and they'll mention their age if they're young. So I'm assuming that they are beyond at least a couple of years of homeschooling. And some of them said, oh, I wish that my parents had done this. But a lot of them then in the end said, I'm actually glad that my parents homeschooled me. Some of them said I really loved it at the time. Some said I didn't like it or appreciate it at the time, but now I actually do. So there's going to be mixed reviews. And I'm going to encourage you not to get stuck in those. You right now are thinking, I don't know how this is going to turn out. And to be honest, with the amount of homeschoolers right now, I feel like there is this, I don't know if it's global, but let's just say in the United States, it is just this grand, in air quotes, experiment because there are so many homeschoolers. And you that are listening to this, the couple thousand or however many of you homeschool moms that are listening to this episode are going to produce, so say there's 1,000 of you that listen to this. And even if you all only had one child, that would be 1,000 children going out into the world being homeschooled. If you all had 2 children, it would be 2,000. And so there's a mixed bag there. There's some that have 1, there's some that have 10. So there's going to be many thousands of homeschool moms that are just listening to this episode. There's many that don't listen to my podcast at all that are homeschooling. And there's going to be millions upon millions of homeschoolers in, let's say, 10 to 15 years that are going to be going out into the world. And, like, okay, how is this going to turn out? To be honest, we don't really quite know because we haven't gotten there. But from what I see, the fruit of what I see, and being on I just see a lot of homeschool parents being willing to make changes and to adjust and say, what am I preparing my kids for? I actually have an episode coming up. It's been ruminating in my mind about that. And I think it's something we really do need to talk more about it. But how do you overcome the not knowing how it's going to turn out? At this point, you just have to give it to God. You have to say, okay, God, I will take that fear and that scaredness and that worrisomeness that I have in my heart about this fear, I'm going to take it and I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to turn it into something positive. And how do you do that? You might say, well, I'm really scared my kids aren't going to know how to interact with people of various ages and they're not going to be well spoken. Well, then you say, I'm going to be intentional about exposing them to people and walking them through conversations. Maybe you get them involved in a speech club or a debate club because that's important to you. So look at what those fears are of like, I don't know how this is going to end. How can you then turn it into something good? How can you pour it into your family by being intentional? The second reason I see a lot of homeschool moms being fearful is that they are worried over the right way to homeschool and what curriculum to use. Guess what? There is no exact right way to homeschool in terms of to get this great result, you have to do this. There are a lot of roads. There's a lot of paths you can take and you kind of go off here and you come back and there's overlap of what you'll do and somebody else will do. But we spend a lot of time worrying about, am I doing this the right way? Am I doing this the right way? Am I doing this the right way? I know you're saying that mantra in your head. Let's stop saying that mantra in your head. You'll say, well, what curriculum do I need to use? Number one question. If you have homeschooled for more than a couple of weeks and you had somebody ask you about homeschool because they're interested in it, I'm almost guaranteed that they have asked about curriculum. I get asked all the time what curriculum to use because we think homeschool, home education, academics, curriculum, because they're using curriculum in the school. So therefore, I have to find curriculum. And it is a good question. I love curriculum. I loved those years of shopping for curriculum and saying, what do I want to pour into my kids this year? And what are some resources that are going to help to do that? But we can get so stuck on doing it the right way and having the right curriculum that we get stuck, that we don't just do it. You just have to homeschool. You just have to sometimes use the curriculum that's in front of you. I do have some episodes about curriculum. I will drop one or two or something in the show notes for you just to kind of help you feel a little bit better about it. But the way of homeschooling, the different styles of homeschooling, the curriculum that you use, those are resources to come alongside you, to come along your family culture. So how do you overcome this? It's just coming to the point where you realize that there is no right or wrong. It's not like there is one right path and you have to figure out what that right path is. And if you don't find that right path and you don't get onto that right path, therefore your homeschool was wrong and you missed it, you blew it, and you didn't do it the right way. That's not how it works. There is an optimal way for you to homeschool right now. And that is to ask yourself, what is best for this year? And you make those decisions. You choose the curriculum, you choose the activities, you choose the resources, you choose how you're going to spend your time, what your focus is, your goals are going to be for your homeschool. And then you try it. And then you see, is this working or not working? Sometimes you got to throw the whole thing in the trash can and start over again. But that typically doesn't happen. Usually it's just little things that just need to be tweaked. And you might say, well, I really thought that this new math curriculum was really going to be the thing that was going to help my kid, but he's really struggling. This is not going well. Well, don't throw everything out. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just change up the math curriculum. So say to yourself, what is best for this homeschool year? Now, when this episode comes out, you are most likely on summer break, and maybe you've gotten your curriculum for the homeschool year, or maybe you have not, but just focus on this year. And sometimes I say to parents, just focus on when you start, whether that's August or September. That's around typically. It doesn't mean you have to. You can do what you want, all right? But up until about, let's say, Christmas break or so, focus on that time. And then use that Christmas break to evaluate how things are going for the second half of the homeschool year. If you have questions about how to organize your homeschool and how to create a vision and how to set up goals for this homeschool year, That's where your homeschool blueprint, that's a great resource for you. This is a good time to go through it. So I want to encourage you to go check out that at littlebylittlehomeschool.com/blueprint. So the way to overcome your worry over doing it the right way and the curriculum to use is just to say, what is best for this year? Put your head down, do what's best for this year, pivot and change as you need to. The third thing that I see that parents are typically fearful, well, usually homeschool moms, dads are kind of like, you're doing a good job, honey, is that they are scared of failing their kids and of their kids turning out messed up. Because let's go back to those particular case studies where there's this one kid or this one family, and I will tell you that those kids that don't turn out, we'll say, well, that turn out messed up because of homeschooling, it probably wasn't just the homeschooling. It was the parenting. And you have now chosen to take that fear and the worry that you have over homeschool, and you're going to turn it into something positive, and you're going to be intentional. Your kids will not end up messed up. Sometimes our kids are going to take roads that we're not going to want them to, especially as they get to the point they're done with homeschool, become young adults, and they make decisions and choices, and they're going to have to live with those consequences and the outcomes of the things that they choose. We could have our best intentions and do the best that we can. And in the end, our kids could say, well, if you hadn't have done this and hadn't done that. And we just pray that they realize that their parents did the best that they could with what they knew at the time, right? I say, I would have loved to have been homeschooled. My parents did what was best for me that they knew of at that time. And so therefore, it's up to me to decide, well, so what? I wasn't homeschooled. I had some experiences. Those helped shape me into who I am now. I had that perspective of public school. But I've also gotten to the point where I love learning again. So I kind of feel like through homeschooling, I've become a homeschool student as well. So we can be so scared of failing our kids. And this is what holds a lot of parents back from homeschooling, is that they are scared that they're going to fail their kids, they're going to mess up their kids. Have you messed up your kids yet? Most likely, no. Did you mess them up before they would have to get onto the bus to go to kindergarten? No, I'm sure not. None of us are perfect. Only God is perfect. But when we lean into how He has set your family apart into your family culture, and we're intentional, we spend time in prayer and work through the fruits of the Spirit, we allow God to sanctify us, I can almost guarantee that your kids are not going to be messed up. So how do you overcome this? And it's realizing that homeschool is more than just the curriculum. It's also about raising some well-rounded kids, some kids that are prepared to go out into the world to glorify God in everything that they do. So we need to reach their hearts too. In episode 370, I talked about a couple of common traits that I often see in homeschool students. So I would encourage you, well, let's say homeschool graduates. I would encourage you to listen to that because it's a way of encouraging you to really focus on what's really important here. I'm not saying the curriculum, the academics are not important. However, let's reach their hearts and make them more well-rounded and prepared for the world. So those are the three things that I see that moms are most of the time scared about, and I've given you some ways to overcome them, and I pray that it blesses you. If you are considering joining, maybe you might be thinking, how about a co-op? Well, Classical Conversations might be that answer for you. I want to encourage you to go ahead and check out the link that's going to be in the show notes. It's also info.classicalconversations.com/New York for you New Yorkers. But you could also go on to that page, even if you're not in New York, and just submit your name. Get some information. Find out where a local Classical Conversations is to you and be able to then get connected, talk to them, take a look at the curriculum, see how they run their days, and see what that would look like, and see if it would be a good fit for your family. So again, thank you to Classical Conversations for sponsoring the conference. If you are interested in attending the conference, you can get more information and get your ticket at littlebylittlehomeschool.com/conference. You are doing a good thing by homeschooling. I know that you're going to change this fear into a good positive thing, and I'll see you back here on the podcast real soon. Thank you for listening, friend. I'd love to connect with you more. You can find social media links in the show notes and share this episode with a friend who could use a boost to her homeschool. See you back here real soon.